My name's Jocelyn Taylor, and I'm going to tell the story about Albion's historic carousel. In 1947, the Albion Lions Club decided to get together and give a gift to the local community kids. They wanted to bring a merry-go-round into town. So they began their search and ended up finding one that was out of Lorain, Ohio. It was a used one, and it was kind of more in their price range. Typically at the time, a carousel would be between $10,000 and $20,000. This one they found was just $800. So they took the trip to Lorain and looked at it, and this was one of the very first community service projects that the newly organized Lions did for our community. Once they went and looked at it, they found it in much disrepair. It was in somebody's barn in pieces. So when they came back to town, they decided that they could probably make this work. They created what they called the Merry-Go-Round Fund Drive so that local organizations and businesses and even residents could help in raising the money to bring the carousel into town. The Merry-Go-Round Fund Drive was a huge success, and they found that even though their goal was only $800, by January of 1948, they had already raised over $3,000 for the carousel. Now, once they hit the $800, they did develop a crew to go and pick it up and transport it back to Albion. But the fund drive kept going, and that was for restoration purposes because it obviously was going to need a lot of work. As the restoration began, a lot of the history of the carousel came about. Turns out the carousel was built around 1897. It was a traveling carousel that went around to local fairs in the Ohio area. When it wasn't fair season, this carousel was actually the first operating carousel at Cedar Point. In addition to the carousel being built in 1897, the oldest part of the carousel was the original 200-whistle organ that was built in 1850. So now that we realize what a gem we have in the area, restoration took painstaking hours, days, months. Throughout the entire winter of 1947, they worked on each individual animal. They worked on rebuilding the decking. Originally, the carousel was operated by 2 to 3 horses on a crank system to pull the merry-go-round around in a circle. Of course, that had to be changed over, so it was made easier with a motor. By the start of the Summer Park program in 1948, the carousel was up and running for kids of the community, and the Lions Club realized the dream of being able to give the gift back to the kids of the community. One of the major improvements that was made to the carousel was the 8-sided pavilion that it's now housed in. That would protect it from the elements because it is a true wooden structure. It was a mainstay for the park program and the Albion Area Fair until 1967, when unfortunately a group of vandals really worked it over. There were 6 to 10 horses that were actually thrown in Conneaut Creek behind the park. Most all of the legs and ears were broken off these horses, and the original organ, 60% of it was destroyed. So of course that was a huge blow to the community. But again, in true community spirit, they called out for help, and basically the town has adopted this carousel. And whenever it needs refurbished, the people step up and refurbish. So the second refurbishment happened around 1967 after the vandalism. So when I was a kid, it was open to us as in the park program during the fair, we were able to ride on this historic carousel. And come the late 80s, 1986-ish, it did have to be torn down because it was in disrepair again. So they tore it down for 2 years, reshored the decking, and each horse on the carousel was adopted by a local family to disassemble each piece, sand it down, repaint it, and reassemble it. And that is where the carousel is today. It was reopened in 1988. It consists of 22 deer, horses, and zebras. And it's just a continuing reminder of the beautiful gift that the Lions Club gave to our community.